Well, here we are at the great Fouch family off-grid trash shed reveal. But I'm going to warn you that if you're squeamish, this isn't the one for you. We do a lot of different things on this channel. This particular video is going to include some information about how we live, including information about our trash, our compost, and our composting toilet. We're not going to show anything in particular, but we are going to talk about it. So if you love this channel for the really sweet vlogs and scenic landscapes, I recommend number 50. I'll pop it up right here. A really magical vlog with the kids sledding. And if you missed it, you can watch it again. And if you're here for the building, to watch Nick build things, you know, a video that didn't get enough credit is when Nick and Milo together made a DIY metal chest set out of nuts and bolts. It's a great video. I can completely see why you might have said to yourself, I don't want to watch a dad and his kid making a chest set, but in this case, you'd be wrong. So if you don't want to watch anything about compost or composting toilets, then go check out one of those, and we love you anyway. For anybody who is still here, the delights of the trash shed. We reveal to you. All right, I think it might be your turn.
So I guess it's my job to give you the grand tour. Here's what we have inside. Garbage. All right. You don't need to see what's in the garbage, but it's in there. So I keep, 5 big trash cans. I like the brute trash cans, and then we saved some money and bought some other ones as well. But anything with a snap-on lid that will mostly keep the mice out, that's what I like. So we do bagged kitchen trash. This is mostly food packaging and things that we either don't burn or compost. As soon as we put anything in a garbage can, it gets a lid snapped on it so that mice don't go in there. The empty ones get stored upside down also, so mice don't get curious and get trapped in the bottom and die. We either keep them upside down or lidded tight. We also have in here a little collection of cardboard. We'll collect cardboard for quite a while, and Esther likes to use it for sheet mulching as a weed barrier right down at the bottom. So we'll keep quite a collection of that. If it gets to be too much and she doesn't have anything coming up to use it, we will recycle it. The trash that isn't in the cans with the lid snapped tight is construction trash or anything that's non-food trash. This doesn't have any food wrappers or little food bits. Nothing that's going to attract the pests into those. Moving on. Mm-hmm. All right. Is that enough about garbage?
I don't know. Let's ask our subscribers. Is that enough about garbage?
If you want to hear more about garbage, write me a long form letter, send it to our P.O. box, and make your case for wanting to hear more about this. The other things in here are some animal food. So we have chickens. I'm touching the chicken house now. Very close to the trash shed. The chickens eat compost, but they also eat regular layer feed. So we keep a spare bag. Any bagged food goes in here, but we actually use it out of this. And that closes nice and tight and keeps the mice out. One of the other things we keep in here is the wood shavings for our composting toilet. So I just have a big plastic barrel, and that's where we get our wood shavings. We also usually keep empty buckets and lids for the composting toilet system in here, so when it's time to change out a bucket, we have a couple set up and we can just grab them and go. We also keep fuel in here, so our generators and our four-wheeler and A couple other machines, the sawmill, they all run on non-ethanol gasoline. So that's what's in all of those red cans. We keep a little spare for the cars if anybody needs a little top off. So if anybody needs the tank topped off before you head into town, we can do that. I also keep spare propane tanks in here. The main thing with storing fuel is it's away from the house, and it's mostly just in a place where you're not going to mess with it. It's out of the sun, which is important, but mostly it's just important that it has a place where it goes all the time. I also keep a wrench for changing out the propane tanks. And that's pretty much it. If we ever have excess dog food, say we buy dog food in bulk and it's more than what fits in our container inside, we'll put that in here. And anything else that we want to keep out of critter zone.
How does it close? And how significant is that?
So we have a padlock on it right now. We usually leave it something like that. It can just be like a carabiner. That's what was on the leash there. It's just a carabiner to go in the hasp. That makes it somewhat critter proof and not child proof, and that's okay.
What kind of critters are we talking about?
So mostly we have raccoons that will get into animal food and trash. And I guess occasionally we have had bears around looking for trash and dog food and things. So having those things in not bear-proof or raccoon-proof containers, but at least snap-tight trash cans inside of a building that has a hasp on it is good enough for us. The building itself doesn't have to be anything special. We got this shed for free off Craigslist. It fit in my truck in one piece, and we kind of just plopped it down in a temporary spot.
Number one defense against animals in our food trash is to have the food go to animals. So before we put anything in the trash, we have a worm bin and we have our chickens. We only occasionally have food trash that can't go to the chickens or to the worms. And that's just usually a matter of having mixed things together in a way. Potatoes and onions aren't so great for the chickens. The worm bin doesn't like orange peels. If you've mixed things together in a way that is, you can't just pick it apart, then I'll toss that food into our compost pile. Our compost pile is primarily what's coming right out of this composting chicken coop, and it is hot. It is hot and it is shrinking quickly. Now I'm also going to tell you something here. I warned you that if you were squeamish, you shouldn't watch this one. We have intentionally a little privacy barrier here because the compost pile also doubles as a gentleman's restroom. Some of you may have already heard that human urine is good for compost. It's got a lot of nitrogen in it and it'll kick off your compost. Plus, what is the good of living in the woods if you can't pee outside now and then? So that's our spot for it, and we have a little straw bale wall there. Also behind our straw bales, another thing that we are hiding is our full buckets from our composting toilet. So we gather up several buckets before we empty them. Emptying the buckets into the humanure compost, which is in a different location, further away from the house, is the least pleasant job about it. We don't mind at all having a bucket toilet. If you have enough sawdust, it works fine. You just cover everything. You cover it so it doesn't look bad, so it doesn't smell bad. You do that right away, and it works fine. The one unpleasant moment, though, is emptying those buckets out into the compost bin and then covering them again. So there's one unpleasant moment. We try not to do it for every single bucket. We'll let these stack up, and I do it once a month. Another important thing to note, if you're getting into composting toilet world, especially sawdust bucket toilet world, is that you have to label your buckets. Not just by, oh, this bucket has food in it, and this bucket has toxic, how do I say this?
Toxic doo-doo.
I'm not going to say toxic doo-doo.
Why not? Say it.
You can't just, you can't just,
Doo-doo.
you can't just label your buckets, this one has food in it and this one has doo-doo in it. We have completely different colors for them. So we never put we never put a white bucket in the toilet. Only the orange buckets go in the toilet. And another thing to think about for that is that in order to have your composting bucket system work well and be clean and safe, your buckets need to be not scratch. They need to be clean. So we don't even use the same buckets for the toilet that we use for dirt work, for example. Even though they probably would get cleaned out pretty quickly by the dirt, we don't want to put scratched buckets back into our toilet system because those scratches will hold bacteria and be harder to clean. So we have a set of buckets that are designated only for that. There are 10 of them, but I try to change them out after 8. I am on a tripod so that Nick can't make me crack up. Here's the information that I wanted to get across to you. If you're in a situation where you are producing food trash and you don't want that to be a danger to you and your family by inviting wild animals, here are the 3 things that work for us. 1, reduce the amount of food and food trash that's going into your trash in the first place. Reducing your use of packaged foods, that's what we're all here to do anyway. And also making sure that there is some other place for that food waste to go. If your food isn't moldy, you can give it right to your chickens. Even if it is moldy, you can put it in a worm bin. A less desirable option is to put that food in your compost pile. If you bury it, it does compost pretty quickly, especially if you have a hot pile, but that's actually pretty inviting to raccoons, so you may still have somebody digging through that pile. That's number 1. Number 2, have containers that snap shut. Containers for your trash with lids that snap shut. This is not going to keep a bear out, but it is going to keep a mouse out, and we find that that is important. We live in this house, and the mice live in that house. And finally, number 3, store those trash containers in a structure that has sturdy walls and closes with a hasp. So for us, that's a building. For some people, that's a box. Something that is sturdy and closes and requires opposable thumbs to open. And that's what works for us in handling our trash off-grid. If you were to find yourself in a situation where you needed to compost human waste safely, here are the things that work for us. 1, have containers that are designated for that and only for that, that look really pretty different from any similar containers. In our case, that means orange buckets for that and white buckets for food. 2, have a lot of a carbon material that will balance the nitrogen. We're fortunate that Nick produces sawdust just kind of walking around. He just makes sawdust. So we have no shortage of it, but it's worthwhile to find a good sawdust source. That's really the key to making it not a problem in your home. If you have enough carbon to balance the nitrogen, you won't see anything, you won't smell anything, you won't have that sense of discomfort that comes with what's actually a safety concern, poorly managed waste. Thirdly, have a destination that's a good, fair distance away and fenced. We don't actually have a fence around ours, but it's pallets. It's closed in a way that really keeps it in one place, and it's going to be able to stay there for quite some time. Number 4 and number 5 I have to do together so that they make sense. Number 4, we control the amount of water that enters the process at any point. Feces and water together can be very dangerous if it's just rolling down the hill in that form. That's exactly the form in which we don't want it. Number 5, however, is that we think of it as a closed system. So anything that comes into contact with the composting process at any point If it needs to be cleaned, gets cleaned out right on top of that finished composting pile, and the wash water goes onto that composting pile. So you get good at cleaning things with just a little bit of water. We do have one brush which is tied to the compost pile, which is a toilet brush, which stays there. We put a little bit of water in the bucket, rub it out, pour it out, and use it only for that purpose, with plenty of sawdust to control any unpleasant odors or appearances. And that is everything we do to handle our composting toilet. There's no way I could have done that with Nick behind the camera.
Great. Anything else you want to say about this area or how we keep trash?
This is my favorite place to hang out and drink my morning coffee, right inside the trash shed.
It is?
No, it's not at all.